Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Sox Machine Live. I am Josh Nelson alongside Jim Margulis, as it is Thursday night, September 2nd, 2021, as we are streaming this show live on our YouTube page at youtube.com/SoxMachine and on SoxMachine.com. For those that are watching on Twitter via Periscope, hello. And for the few of you watching us on Twitch, what's up? And for those that didn't get a chance to watch the live stream, you're listening to this on the podcast feed, which you can subscribe to the Sox Machine podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And on this episode of Sox Machine Live, there's a few roster things we're going to discuss. There are some injuries, key injuries for the White Sox that we'll parse through. The White Sox also made some September call-ups, and Gavin Sheets had an instant impact for the White Sox in his return, hitting 2 home runs against Pittsburgh. And we may see a new face in a White Sox uniform, the relatively unknown Romy Gonzalez before this season. Will he play this weekend against the Kansas City Royals? We'll chat about that. But we're going to start off this episode of Sox Machine Live, Jim, talking about Jose Abreu, who had another monster month of August. And Major League Baseball announced earlier today that Jose Abreu is the American League Player of the Month. And again, just another monster August. I wrote about it on SoxMachine.com. We talked about it often. Just when the calendar flips to August, Jose Abreu becomes a different hitter. He hit .330 with a .382 on base percentage, and he slugged .661 with 10 home runs and 25 RBIs. And Jim, I'm wondering, because we talked about in previous episodes, the instant impact with Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez and Yasmani Grandal coming off the injured list. We thought it could be slow. It's been a while since these guys have faced Major League pitching, but instead they just raked right away. With them back in the lineup, is Jose Abreu the biggest benefactor out of all the White Sox players to have those guys back in?
Maybe. I think when it comes to like the biggest benefactor, it might be somebody like Cesar Hernandez, who if he struggles can just be bumped down to 8th or 9th and not really have to worry about fulfilling the top spot at the top of the order. But when it comes just to, I would say like maybe the benefit of, stat padding, RBIs. I think that's where Abreu benefits. Like he already does a incredible job of getting RBIs despite, a lineup over the years that has been short on OBP and short on the traditional leadoff types. Adam Eaton was that traditional quintessential leadoff man. But since then, going from like Tim Anderson and Larry Garcia, like guys who don't really lead the OBP charts, but still manage to get on, and Abreu manages to drive them in when they do get on enough to lead the league and get that black ink in RBIs. I think that just makes that easier, makes that final month, like even if he has a little bit of a regression from his August dominance to more of a September, a kind of gentle regression into September, he still should have plenty of opportunities to get those numbers across. So yeah, I think he does benefit in one way, and it's I guess the only thing that's kind of annoying about Abreu winning the Player of the Month again and leading the league in RBIs again is we still not past the really just inane arguments over the value of RBIs. Like I thought that was settled in 2009. The RBIs don't matter. Save from attrition. Say that's main value. Like no, it's fine. It's fine for somebody like him. He doesn't need to care about his weighted on base average, and he doesn't need to care about his wins above replacement. Like his job when he's at the plate is to drive in who's on base. Like he's doing his job just fine. Like that's not. You don't need to ask him about that. It's two different things.
Yeah, and he's won. I've been looking at RBIs like per plate appearance, like overall, and with runners in scoring position, and Abreu is still one of the best hitters in all of Major League Baseball, whether it's just every single PA, which he ranks 4th in Major League Baseball as far as RBIs per plate appearance, and if you put runners in scoring position, he ranks 10th in Major League Baseball. It's almost 50% of the time that Abreu's going to drive in a run when he's at bat with a runner in scoring position. Eloy Jimenez has a ridiculous .637 RBIs per plate appearance with runners in scoring position. So 63.7% of the time when Eloy Jimenez is batting right now this season and there's a runner in scoring position, a run's going to score almost 64% of the time. That's really impressive, obviously, for Jimenez. It's incredibly small sample size. But yeah, the RBI conversation is coming back, and yeah, that's all I have to say. I like RBIs. I know it's a dirty stat, though. And ultimately, you get into this conversation of who's a better hitter, and then you get into the whole folks not liking weighted runs created plus or OPS plus, and yeah, it gets messy, and the conversation gets really dumb.
But when he slugs 661 and drives in 25 runs, like everybody can agree, great month.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's you don't need to pick a number and then just you can just survey the whole buffet of numbers. He's great in basically every category. Celebrate that. Doesn't need to be a referendum on RBIs.
What was interesting, because this was in James Fegan's column on The Athletic and interviewing Abreu, that the soundbite from Frank Menechino, the hitting coach for the White Sox, making the comment, Jim, that if you asked Jose Abreu, Jose's having a bad year. That's something I would disagree with Abreu. Abreu's not having a bad year, even for his standards. He's not having a bad year. I'm sure he would love to have his batting average where it was last year. And, it's hard. It's hard to repeat an MVP season, especially for a hitter like Jose Abreu. But something that I have noticed in the first half of the season, in 83 games, Abreu hit 253 with a 334 on base percentage and slugged 451. Okay, that's not vintage Jose Abreu, as he had 15 homers and 66 RBIs in 83 games. The second half of the season, since the All-Star break, Abreu's hitting 281 with a 363 on base percentage and slugging 587 with 13 home runs in 44 games. Okay, yeah, that's getting closer to the 2020 American League MVP version of Jose Abreu. And yeah, it is amazing to me. It's just one of the quirks of baseball players for XYZ reason, when they play in this month or in this half or in this stadium or against this opponent, they have tremendous success. And for Jose Abreu, it continues his legacy in the month of August, just simply dominating, and he dominated again.
Yeah, it's a tough way to, I guess it requires a lot of faith. I'll put it that way. Just if you struggle or kind of scuffle or posting pedestrian numbers for 4 months, just say, wait until August, I got this. And you might think that that's like a just kind of an excuse, but with him, I think he's got the benefit of the doubt that nope, but just whatever reason, maybe you need to consider like July 20th, like August -10th or something like that. Like maybe you need to work the calendar for him just to expand the month and have August go 2 pages instead of 1. But yeah, it's awesome.
All right, let's talk about something that's not awesome, and the injuries for the Chicago White Sox. Lance Lynn is already on the injured list for something with his knee that's nagging him. The White Sox believe that Lynn's just going to miss 1 start, so nothing too concerning when it comes to Lance Lynn. However, it just so happens to be on Tuesday's starts against Pittsburgh that Lucas Giolito slipped while fielding a swinging bunt, and it looked like it was bugging him as far as his legs. And it turns out that Giolito, after the game, says that it's his left hamstring that's giving him issues. And the Chicago White Sox are going to check him out, and he's going to try to throw a bullpen on Friday, September 3rd in Kansas City to see how he feels. And then there's Tim Anderson, in which the White Sox for more than a week now have said that there's no need to put Anderson on the injured list. We know how to handle this. We'll give him plenty of days off to battle as far as the soreness that he's dealing with. And then the very next day, the White Sox put Anderson on the injured list. And now you have this quote from Tony La Russa saying, quote, "I'd be careful guaranteeing that Anderson will be back in 10 days. I know that's the expectation because he's improved since day 1 and he's getting better. But if there's a little soreness, you just wait. Let's get them healthy. Jim, let's start with Anderson first, because this is something that's been nagging him for a while now. How concerned should White Sox fans be regarding Anderson's hamstrings?
I'm still not that concerned. Like I would say, like on a scale of 1 to 10, it might be like a 4. Like when it comes to his talent, it would be more than that, But given that he was able to play well when he did play, it makes me think like it can't be that serious, but it does cause faith in their injury prognoses to waver a little when, it's not just Anderson, it's also Adam Engel, who's had some fits and starts when it comes to when he'll be able to come back, whether he'll be able to stay off the injured list, when his rehab stint's going to start. We've seen, him go back and forth a little bit. So when it comes to like leg injuries, you can't place a whole lot of faith in what they're doing or what they know or like, whether their first attempt at solving it will stick. So that's why it's like more than say a 2 or 3. So that's I think where I'm at right now.
Okay. No one should be jumping off the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
The White Sox, this is the benefit of having a 10-game lead in the American League Central. You can have Anderson take as long as he needs. I will say that I don't think we're going to see Tim Anderson steal a lot of bases in this upcoming postseason. And I think with the postseason games, White Sox fans, all fans for any sport, they want their team to give it like 150% effort because it's the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to get out in front for White Sox fans not to be too upset that if Anderson hits a grounder to the shortstop and the shortstop fields it cleanly, is what I'm trying to say, that Anderson is not going to run as hard as he can down the first baseline in the third inning of Game 1 of the American League Divisional Series. Because there is the risk with his current health situation that if he does, he's going to pull the hamstring, and then the White Sox don't have Tim Anderson for the rest of that series, and he's at risk of missing the American League Championship Series. So there's one part of the White Sox managing Tim Anderson. Then there's when Tim Anderson returns, managing and how hard he plays and how much stress he puts on his legs if it is impacting him. So we may not see Tim Anderson stealing a bunch of bases in the postseason. He could still be a very effective player for the White Sox, collecting the hits, coming up with the big hits and the big moments that we have seen this year. But I just want to get out in front of that before White Sox fans in a month start screaming, why isn't Tim Anderson running as hard as he possibly can down the first baseline? Well, if he does, he's going to pull a hamstring, and then Luis Garcia is your starting shortstop for the rest of the postseason.
I guess the good news is we've seen Yasmani Grandal running or half running, running at 70% with his sprint speed already limited. And I think that helps clear a path a little bit. Like Anderson jogging is probably faster than Grandal running right now.
Yes.
For most of Grandal's efforts, and that's fine. Like when it comes to Grandal, we've seen how much power he's hitting with, how much more stable, I should say, the behind the plate presence is. To where when he jogs down the line or he looks like he's not giving it all, like nobody cares. I think
right.
Apply that precedent to Anderson, assuming Anderson makes the plays he needs to get to and runs when he needs to, that's fine. But, the tricky thing is with Luis Robert, I think he's also running a little bit less than maybe his top sprint speed. But when it came to Robert, he tore his hip when he was trying to leg out an infield single. I actually did leg out an infield single. So it's always touchy, knowing what's worth and what's not, because ultimately, or I guess when it comes to that play, it was worth the hustle getting the single, but in the big picture, it wasn't. And so I think it's a tricky balance to strike whenever the instinct comes in and the timing of the game clicks in your head to realize I can beat this out, whether that effort will take over or whether they just know in their, musculature, something's not quite right here. My leg, it doesn't flex the way it normally does because of the surgery or the rehab or what I'm trying to do. So it's going to be fun / interesting / curious to watch, when they can turn it on, when they won't, and whether like they can reach top speed this year.
Well, just hit home runs all the time and then
Yeah.
jog around the bases.
Yeah. Nobody has a
If it
problem with
only
that.
that easy.
Get those RBIs.
Yeah, there you go. If it were only that easy. Okay, let's move over to Lucas Giolito. Because there's some folks that sit, I hopped on another podcast and I got posed this question. Well, if Giolito goes on the injured list, is that the same thing as the White Sox putting Lance Lynn on the injured list, that they're just, being too cautious here? I disagree with that angle because we see Lucas Giolito leaving the game and he's obviously hurt. There is something bugging him as he leaves the game against Pittsburgh, and he openly admits that there is something wrong with his left hamstring. Not as bad, or at that moment it didn't feel as bad when he pulled his hamstring back in 2019 in a start that took him out. But it is something that's bugging him. And La Russa told the media that Giolito's going to try to throw a bullpen session on Friday. If that bullpen session doesn't go well, Giolito's not pitching in the weekend series against Boston. And that's not this weekend. That's next weekend. You might as well just put Giolito then on the injured list so you can call somebody else up if you know that he's definitely not going to pitch 7 or 8 days from now if he's not going to feel good on Friday. That's just how I feel. So when it comes to Giolito, how concerned are you regarding Giolito's injury?
I would say like I'm a 6.
Okay, so more concerned for
yeah,
Giolito
more
than
concerned.
Anderson.
Just because, as you mentioned, we saw it. Like with the other injuries, Lance Lynn, we've seen him looking uncomfortable, but he always just kind of looks vaguely irritated when he's on the mound. Radon, we didn't see him, with the shoulder fatigue. We didn't really see that come into play. We're seeing it now a little bit, I think, and to not get too ahead of our topics here, but just we've seen that now manifest itself. But when he went on the injured list, we hadn't yet seen exactly what he's dealing with. But yeah, we saw Giolito hobbling around the mound. We saw it getting worse as he was trying to throw. And when he mentioned that it wasn't as bad as 2019, I just didn't know at that moment whether to take that as denial. Part of the denial he was showing on the mound, being like, no, this isn't that bad. I can keep throwing, when he's limping and when he's like shaking both legs out, trying to get it to feel right. Like, I don't know if that's like a Black Knight thing where he's just saying like, it's just a flesh wound, where are you going? I can do this. That's why I don't quite trust his injury assessment in the moment, in the aftermath. I think we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, I'm just a little bit more concerned because we saw it, and because that's when it comes to leg injuries, as I just said, like the White Sox have had an iffy time getting past them fully. So the combination of him being on the injured list with Lynn before him, Lynn, I would say I'm like a 2 or a 3, just because he'd been pitching with it, and this seems like it happened before. Maybe if Giolito hadn't gone on the injured list here, or hadn't gotten injured, or maybe if you rotate the order and have Giolito getting hurt before Lynn has the option of going, maybe Lynn waits, or maybe they push him back in the rotation, but ultimately keep him active. They put him on the injured list before that. So I'm thinking like Lynn's a 2, but yeah, Giolito's like a 6 right now, just because I kind of, even then, I don't know if I'm going to trust the injury. If he makes a start in Kansas City, I could still have being like, we just want 3 innings. We're just kind of trying to piece together starts at this point. And, I don't think we're going to know anything about Giolito's hamstring, even if he does start over the weekend, because as we've seen with Radon, I think they're trying to be really careful in how much they ask for pitchers right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the strategy changes in September, that no one in this starting rotation is going to be throwing more than 5 or 6 innings. Like 6 innings may be the max. Even if Dylan Cease has got like 6 shutout innings going and he's at 80 pitches, I wouldn't be surprised if the White Sox start pulling him, and fans would be like, well, what's going on here? He could pitch at least an inning or 2 more to go. He's red hot. And I think La Russa is thinking, and I agree with him in this line of thinking, it's time to save some bullets for October. Again, the benefits of having a 10-game lead in the American League Central is to be able to rest guys and not having to push them so hard to win a division title. Where if you look across the league right now, Tampa Bay's kind of in that same situation with the White Sox. They have a very big lead. Houston can breathe a little with Oakland trailing back, and the Milwaukee Brewers in the same boat. But that's not the case in the National League West, right? With the Dodgers and Giants. Both of those teams are going to have to go full throttle the rest of the way. Same thing with the wild card teams, Boston and Oakland, two teams the White Sox are going to see next week, battling, each other for one of those playoff spots. And then in the National League, you got, San Diego and Cincinnati. Those teams have to stress. Those
and the
if
best
those
in the
teams,
NL East.
whatever is going on in the National League East. There are teams that if they were suffering these injuries, like having to lose a shortstop like Anderson and a starting pitcher like Giolito, that's almost panic mode. If we were if we were fans of one of those teams. But for the White Sox at this moment, I don't think there's any reason to be higher than what you said, Jim, a 6 on a 10-point scale as far as these injury concerns. I think we're just hopeful that we do see them before the regular season ends, and they show that they are as close to 100% as they possibly can in a 162-game marathon season. And we were half expecting this because coming off a 60-game season last year, we weren't quite sure on how everybody was going to hold up. And we'll see on how Anderson and Giolito react going. Well, at least Anderson officially on the injured list. We'll see how Giolito's bullpen session goes on Friday. Maybe it'll be good news and he feels good and everything's okay. And then it's not a 6 and it's just a 2, and just making sure that Giolito doesn't have any more hamstring issues in his next start. But again, the White Sox will be reporting that on Friday and we'll get more clarity. And if the White Sox send out a press release that says that Giolito's going on the 10-day injured list, then you know how that bullpen session went on Friday in Kansas City. Speaking of the injured list and those coming off the injured list, Carlos Radon, he made his second start coming off the injured list Wednesday night against Pittsburgh. I was in attendance. I thought he threw well. 5 innings pitched, allowed, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts on 77 pitches. I know it's Pittsburgh. That's not, Murderer's Row that the Pirates have. But something that you wrote on SoxMachine.com, Jim, is we have to pay attention to the velocity. And it just seems that after his start against Toronto and his start against Pittsburgh, Rodon doesn't have that 9,900 mile per hour velocity right now, like he did pre-injury, or at least going on the injured list with his shoulder fatigue. Is this a concern, or do you think he's just bottling up and he's going to use it when he can in the postseason?
I think it's a concern. I mean, there's a chance. Like, I wouldn't completely rule it out that he sees the Pirates on the schedule. He sees the 10-game lead and he just says, like, I'm not going to air it out. Like, I need to, I've talked with Ethan Katz. I've talked with James Kruk. Just, the people who are in charge of me have said, like, hey, don't do this, or tried not to reach 99, 100. But I don't think that's how it works, the velocity, generally speaking. Like, I don't think, aside from maybe like an extreme example like Chris Sale, when he ratcheted it down for that 1 year to try to increase his in-season stamina, his durability, and not fade in September. Like, he tried that, and that was an extreme example. But I think generally speaking, pitchers generally throw as hard as they can, or at least hard as their like mechanics allow them to, and the speed is the speed. So seeing him reach back and hit 96 rather than 100 makes me think like it's not quite there yet. And maybe it's a yet, maybe it's something that he's building back up to, but I'm prepared for the outcome that like he's just kind of the pitcher he was in 2018, 2019, like the guy he was for the first half of the season where he made the All-Star team and looked like a Cy Young favorite. That might be an aberration, just like maybe his body can't quite handle it. And the form he is now is more of a guy who's, just his body's pulling him back to the back to where he needs to be in order to be sustainable. That's just my guess right now based on, how he's throwing, but it does change the way to manage him. Like I wrote about, when he had the ability to start out throwing 92, finish throwing 100, that basically made him his own reliever his third time through. Like in the 5th, 6th, 7th innings, he can be just like, okay, now we're bringing in the flamethrower. It just happens to be me. And good luck with that. Now if he's throwing 94 and he gets to 95, like that's not a difference maker, especially say if the command wobbles. Like that kind of reminds me of what we saw at the end of last year when he could hit 96. His velocity had been the best it was since the surgery, but it wasn't, it didn't have life, it didn't have command. And looking at some of the singles that he gave up or the grounders that he gave up, the opposite field single he gave up in the 5th inning against Pittsburgh, it didn't look like 96. Like it looked like 94, 93. Like the velocity, just based on the pop, the swings, whatever, it looked like the Pirates could line it up in the way like a fastball with hop makes them always look late or just a little bit overwhelmed. Like they could see it coming or have a better idea of how to time it up the third time through. And when he doesn't have a changeup he likes, it makes it harder to have a different look or have a successful look for those hitters the third time through. So unless he starts throwing his changeup more or his curveball more or something like that, or has better luck with this, 2 tilts on his slider to where he can throw that for strikes and pitch backwards, I think it makes it harder to get that extra wind in the 5th and 6th inning. So I think LaRusso was right to pull him when he did at 5 innings and 77 pitches. And that just might be what's asked of him now. Even if, like, say they go into the postseason and he throws like 5 shutout innings, like if he's not hitting 99, I think, it's going to be a pretty quick hook. And, with the postseason, that's just kind of how it's managed right now. So it's not the worst thing in the world. I think the worst thing in the world is having him, absent. So whatever he needs to do to be able to pitch in the postseason is really of the utmost importance, but it does change the way that he's managed, I think.
Well, I think Carlos Rodon is on track to make his next start at Oakland against the Oakland Athletics. So that I agree with you, Jim. It is worth watching the velocity of Carlos Rodon and to see what his max velocity is for that particular day. I imagine that he wants to, for a couple of pitches, see how hard he can throw just to physically test himself. Because against Toronto, he did hit 97 miles per hour. Not that often, but that was his max velocity. He did hit 97. I think, what was his max velocity against Pittsburgh? 95?
95.9, so 96 around it up to.
96, okay. Yep. Yeah, so a mile per hour off from his start against Toronto. Against Oakland, if he's topping out at 95, then maybe there's a little sweat that builds up on the forehead when it comes to Carlos Rodon's shoulder health. That he may not be 100% for the postseason. And White Sox fans expecting to see all-star version of Carlos Rodon come October may not get that because he's trying to be as effective as he possibly can at 80% health with his shoulder. And it is something that, the White Sox have to be concerned with. Carlos Rodon has to be concerned about it, and he's got to be careful because he's a free agent after this year. He doesn't want to, blow up his shoulder, and all of a sudden, it wrecks as far as what kind of contract he can sign after this season, after having a career year, a bounce-back year in 2021. Rodon is the one that I think the White Sox should really limit to just 5 innings for the rest of the month of September, Jim. Because, again, I'm going to keep saying this, a 10-game lead of the American League Central, you could afford Rodon only to throw 5 innings. I just feel like there's no pressure to push him to throw more than 100 pitches. I do have to say, though, the last time Rodon threw 100 pitches in a game was July 6th. It's been a minute, as the cool kids would say, when Rodon had that heavy of a workload. So we'll see on how he does against Oakland, but he's still getting good results. It's not like he's Dallas Keuchel and he's giving up like 6 runs in an inning. And no, he's still keeping the White Sox in the games and he's putting them in a position to win. And I think that also shows the evolution of Carlos Rodon this season as a starting pitcher, that even though he's still not 100%, he's putting the White Sox in a position to win these games.
Yeah, I think it's he's waiting. He's attacking, and he's waiting for opposing offenses to make him go out of the zone, make him nibble, make him nervous, and they haven't yet. So good for him.
We did get this comment from our friend B-Flow. Dallas Keuchel could throw as many innings as he gets, though. And you are correct, B-Flow. Dallas Keuchel could throw as many innings as he wants, as we're not too confident that Dallas Keuchel is going to be pitching in October for the White Sox during the postseason. All right, so the next topic that I want to discuss is the September call-ups for the Chicago White Sox. So the White Sox called up Matt Foster, and a bit of a surprise, they called up Romy Gonzalez, and Gavin Sheets returned. And Gavin Sheets had the instant impact, hitting 2 home runs Wednesday night to power the White Sox to victory. Let's start with Gavin Sheets, because the White Sox DFA'd Jake Lamb. A bit of a surprise, because the White Sox have gone through the roster gymnastics to keep Jake Lamb on the team for a long period of time this season. And I think they could have DFA'd Lamb earlier, but they waited until September 1st to do it, and they replaced Lamb with Sheets. How often do you think we'll see Sheets in the lineup for the White Sox this month?
I think it could be, regular work against righties between right field and DH, and maybe to spare Andrew Vaughn a little bit, because he's been struggling as of late. Like, I think there are ways to rotate him in and out, and I think it's worth doing just because he already got the first cup of coffee out of his way. We saw pitchers throwing him more breaking stuff, more slow stuff low in the zone, and like making him try to lift it, pitching away from his power, making him have to beat shifts. So it's not like they need to hide him or kind of keep him a secret weapon to come off the bench and like, oh, he's he can't hit high fastballs, and he turns them around. Like, there's already a book on him to a certain extent. So I think it's worth learning just how much he's adjusted to that book. And I think that at bat he had for his second homer, where it ended on a miserably bad pitch, like the 0-2 fastball right down the middle. But he got that 0-2 fastball because he fought off a lot of pitches that were, junk, low in the zone, curveballs, changeup, breaking balls. Like, he managed to fight it off. He wasn't able to turn it around or square it up, but at least he lived another day until he frustrated the pitcher enough to, make him come in the zone and attack with the fastball, and he capitalized. So that at least indicated a little bit of growth, or a little bit of, learning how to, self-defense and sustain at bats. So, it's worth learning about that, worth just knowing exactly how much you can count on him, just because he could, theoretically get important at bats or high leverage at bats, if they need that home run off the bench. And I think it's worth knowing just exactly how much you're crossing your fingers if he does get a start in important games.
Romy Gonzalez. What should White Sox fans know about Gonzalez? Because I think you got a chance to watch him in Birmingham.
Yeah, I watched him the first weekend, and it was funny just because when he started in Birmingham, it was partially, you looked at what was in Winston-Salem, Kannapolis, and realized like, oh, he's 24 years old. He's already had a full season in Kannapolis. We have guys like, Lennon Sosa and Yolbert Sanchez who need reps in Winston-Salem, and they're younger. So we're just going to have to shove him up in Birmingham. And, if he falters, then we'll adjust later, but he just might be a collateral damage on the season. It just might be like some guys are going to get pushed beyond their breaking points. We saw that with like Luis Mieses and Harvin Mendoza and High A, Benjamin Bailey and A-Ball. Like, some guys got pushed because they just there wasn't playing time at the lower levels, and it didn't work, and they had to be knocked down. And then, ultimately Mieses and Mendoza got promoted up afterwards. So it worked out, but Gonzalez seemed like that guy. But I guess the one clue that the White Sox might have had high hopes for him was that he was starting at shortstop, like Kurt Bloom, the venerable broadcaster in Birmingham. A lot of fun to talk to about the Barons. Like, we were talking, and he said, it's interesting. Gonzalez, he homered. He had a couple of really good games in the 3 games I saw. And he noted, Laz Rivera started here last year. Laz Rivera's on the roster. He's he's a fine defensive shortstop. I think they're learning about Gonzalez being at shortstop, but there's no harm starting Rivera at shortstop in Birmingham. He'll probably be better than what he showed in 2019. He's got a good glove. That's the safe choice. So to have Gonzalez starting in shortstop and having Rivera be the jack of all trades guy who's not starting every day, that said something about what they wanted to see from him. And then he got off to a hot start and never, he had some, hot and cold streaks to where like, oh, regression setting in. Now you're going to see the Romy Gonzalez. And like after maybe a bad week or two sometimes I think it might've been series, like just because of the 6-game series. And if you have like a loaded pitching staff you're facing or have like, all righties or all like hard throwing slider guys, like I think that can exacerbate slumps for 6 games in the way that other series can't. Like I know that the Charlotte Knights have seen a lot of Durham, a lot of Tampa Bay's pitching prospects. So to see, Brent Honeywell and Shane Baz for like 6 games, every other week, seemingly. Like I think that can cause some headaches. So I think with Gonzalez, he saw some bad weeks, but he also saw like, oh, maybe he was just seeing the Montgomery Biscuits, which is Tampa Bay's AA team. So I think a lot of these prospects who have gone from Birmingham, Charlotte have just seen a lot of great Tampa Bay pitching prospects. So you'd see like that bad week and be like, okay, this is when the real Romy Gonzalez comes up. And then the next week, 4 homers, 3 stolen bases. He gets to 2020 in like 70 something games in Birmingham. Just think, wow. Yeah. And so I think there were some legit strides he made that rewarded the White Sox faith/hope in him. And when he strikes out, he seems to strike out in bunches. And I think that also points to like maybe facing some lopsided schedules with really good pitching staffs versus, ones that are more ordinary in the minors. But I think he struck out 3 or 4 times in 11 games and then 29 games with 0 strikeouts. So he's not somebody who strikes out every 4 at bats or like every time he faces a righty fastball slider guy. Like he's more competitive than that. So I think there are ways to play him, like with Anderson out. I think it makes sense to give him a few starts at shortstop, see what that looks like, especially with Moncada being a good glove at third base and Hernandez being a veteran glove at second. Like I think they can help, move him around and, not put all the weight on him being the captain of the infield. Like they have other guys who can tell him where to go, where to be. So I think there are ways to work him in. And the one thing I think that caught me by surprise is that they could have added him to the 40-man roster in August. And that way he would have been able to be eligible for the postseason roster no matter what. Now with the way the rules are, like there needs to be some kind of injury. Like they can't just, promote him from the, 26-man roster to the postseason roster because he was on in September. Like there needs to be like a long-standing or like an injury that's worked its course for 10 days. And that guy can't come back in order for Gonzalez to come in unless, maybe there's that commissioner, the petition of the commissioner covers more than that, but that's at least what the rules on MLB.com site stated, saying like that there needs to be an injury that has run its course for 10 days and, then they can petition the commissioner and say like Gonzalez is that guy. So fortunately, Gonzalez, I think, has enough outfield experience to where like if Engel or whoever can't answer the call in the outfield, like maybe Gonzalez is a suitable replacement for that position as well.
All right, so that's a great scouting report on Gonzalez. Any chance that White Sox fans can see Gonzalez this weekend against the Kansas City Royals, Jim?
I should hope so. Like between the Royals struggling the way they are with them having left-handed pitchers and Gonzalez being somebody who can hit them, like it makes sense to start him. And I think, it's the kind of situation where if he has a good game, play him again. They got room in the infield. I think the fortunate thing is that Larry Garcia is having one of his hot streaks again where he looks, I don't know if it's like Tim Anderson being out where a shortstop just kind of brings a little bit more out of him. And so like, okay, I need to be the guy. Here are some clutch hits. Here are some 2-out magic. Here's a slick double play. But I think I don't know if just when he's truly needed, he seems to rise to the occasion enough where like, okay, here's why he's been on the White Sox for 27 years. Like just I think this is why managers love him is because when he's truly needed, he looks capable. When I think it's a case when he maybe you don't need him to play every day at second, but when he starts getting that everyday experience at second base, or they don't need him every day in center, but they want him in center, that's I think when his play tails off. But for the times when he truly is necessary, he always seems to reward the decision to play him enough.
Well, we'll see if Romy Gonzalez plays against the Kansas City Royals, but that is the next opponent for the Chicago White Sox as they head to Kauffman Stadium to face the Kansas City Royals for the last time in the 2020 2021 season. The Royals are currently 59-73. They are in fourth place in the American League Central. And what is interesting is that the White Sox are 4-3 this year at Kauffman Stadium. But they lost 3 out of 4 games the last time they visited Kauffman. So, the beginning part of the season, they swept the Royals pretty easily in early May. Then they only won 1 out of 4 in Kansas City. And when Kansas City won the next series at Guarantee Rate Field against the White Sox, that evened up the season series between the White Sox and the Royals in 2021. So they have split the first 16 games. Each team has won 8 games apiece. And for the White Sox this weekend, their pitching probables, it's going to start with Dallas Keuchel on Friday, September 3rd. This is a 7:10 p.m. Central Time start. And then on Saturday, September 4th at 6:10 p.m. Central Time, it's Ronaldo Lopez for the White Sox. And then Dylan Cease will close it out for Sunday, September 5th at 1:10 p.m. Central Time against Kansas City. And Jim, the Royals, as I mentioned, gave the White Sox a headache not that long ago, winning 5 out of 7 against the White Sox. There is no trophy to be given out between the Royals and White Sox for winning the season series, but I expect Kansas. Yeah, that's true. What would that look like? Well, you went to. Well, was there a trophy between Missouri and Illinois for college? The border battle or something like that. What was that called?
It was bragging rights. That was it.
Bragging rights.
Yep, but I don't recall. So
don't recall a trophy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe they could just copy
Josh
that.
Fields. Maybe Josh Fields was with them for a year.
They could get a Josh Fields starting lineup figure if there ever was one, and just glue it on top of a bowling trophy, and that could be whoever wins the season series between the White Sox and Royals. That would be a fun post, just coming up with a bunch of trophy ideas in the American League Central on who wins season series between the two teams. But I expect Kansas City to give the White Sox a headache this weekend. So while on paper, one would think, okay, after the White Sox won 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, they swept a 2-game series against the Pirates. It's another cakewalk in Kansas City before they have another off day on Monday and they head to Oakland for a tough 6-game stretch, 3 against the Athletics and then 3 at home against the Boston Red Sox. But I don't get that feeling, Jim. I think this is going to be a tougher series for the White Sox than expected.
Maybe. Like, just seeing the way Luis Robert is swinging the bat makes me feel a little bit better about just the depth of their lineup. And I think I'm going to be writing about this tomorrow, a sneak peek to Sox Machine, but just some of the swings he had on Wednesday's game against Pittsburgh, like the way he kept that double fair inside the line on that pitch running, like how did he do that? Like how did the guy who swung, over every breaking ball down last year just managed to, flip a breaking ball to center the first time up and then like keep the hands in and hook that ball fair. So I'm encouraged by the way he's playing to where just like he's an added dimension that the White Sox have. And then they have some rookies too, like, Gavin Sheets, Romy Gonzalez, who might get that, rookie magic that the White Sox have used to sustain themselves basically throughout the year. Like I'm hoping Gonzalez picks up where, the kind of that lineage of Yermin Mercedes to Jake Lamb to Jake Berger to Gavin Sheets, just all these Brian Goodwin in there, just these random performances from guys who come in and just catch fire. So I like their offense 1 through 9, and I think they pose a threat there. Mike Minor is also starting tonight against Cleveland, so the White Sox won't face him for whatever reason. Minor's been giving the White Sox fits. Also, I was watching the Cleveland-Kansas City game on Wednesday, and Kansas City had bases loaded, nobody out in 10th inning, just need to score 1 run. Sal Perez at the plate. They didn't score. They lost 11. So
what?
Having seen Sal Perez swing through he fouled back swung through a 90-mile-per-hour fastball, fouled back a hanging splitter, and then swung over another hanging splitter. Like he had a terrible at bat. It's like, okay, that guy is fallible. He's mortal. I think that at bat made me think like, okay, Perez he's fading. So maybe I eat my words a little bit, but just having seen that inning, just like, I know the Royals have a pretty good record against like decent teams this year, against first place teams. They've hung in there. So they're tough, but their pitching's uneven, especially if you get them early. They don't have depth in the bullpen. So there are a lot of guys who are not great at eating innings in the fourth, fifth, sixth. So I think I like the White Sox chances to win the series and flip the season series in their favor.
So with this being the last series against the Royals, folks in Kansas City, maybe specifically General Manager Dayton Moore, thinks that the Royals are closer to contending than what most of the experts think. At least after the 16 games and then after these 3 in Kansas City, we would have seen Kansas City for at least 19 games against the White Sox outside of the other games that we have watched the Royals. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the Royals' chances to be one of the teams that challenges the White Sox in the American League Central in 2022 or 2023?
I think 23 is possible just because they have a lot of veterans to replace in the lineup. Like there's some turnover there. Bobby Witt Jr. looks like the real deal. So I'm quietly terrified of him just turning into a just monster, like along the lines of a Tatis Jr. Maybe, not that instantaneous of success, but just like the skill set is kind of reminiscent, and his ability just to make, the levels look easy for his age. Just you can't quite count that out. He can do a lot, I think, to define where the Royals go. They also have a lot of young pitchers that haven't figured out yet, but might, to where they can be tough. I think you're going to see kind of similar to this year going into next year, where just like they don't have a full lineup yet. They have some guys who are aging out, and then you have some pitchers who are hot and cold / healthy and unhealthy, to where you might catch the rotation when it's complete and fully operational. And then you might catch them when they're scrambling for arms because, the 5 guys that they were counting on, the only 5 guys they're counting on aren't there. So I think they're still in a transition. I think it's gonna be a longer transition for them because their gambles for this year didn't pay off. But I think Nicky Lopez's growth helps them a little bit, buys them a little time for next year. They've had enough performances to make me think like they're kind of in the position they were this past year, where like you can kind of see an 80-win team if things break right. But I think just given how old their offense is, I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. can do it all himself to transition the Royals to a new offense.
Yeah, we've gotten good comments here during our stream. Tim Mayer has a good couple comments. He wrote to us, I, for one, would be just fine with another 20-year stretch of the Royals being the cellar dwellers in the American League Central. And Tim also suggested a good trophy between the White Sox and Royals, the Braggin' Wagon. I like that one. And then he's like, you could also put a cow on it because they would ship cows or ship cattle to Chicago for them to be slaughtered. So there you go, a cow in a wagon. Call it the Bragging Wagon between the White Sox and the Royals. And we'll see how this series goes. For Kansas City, man, Salvador Perez and Whit Merrifield aren't getting younger. Mm-hmm. I feel like if there's going to be a surprise team that's more active in the offseason, even though those outside of Kansas City may look at the activity and ask a lot of questions on what exactly are the Royals trying to achieve. I expect Kansas City to be pretty active in this offseason to try to be one of the teams that challenges the White Sox in the American League Central to contend in 2022. It may be, a year or two soon before the Royals are realistically in a position to contend, but I feel like the Royals are going to push. They're going to push the envelope this offseason just because, again, as you mentioned, Jim, the lineup is not getting younger and the time is now offensively. I could see the Royals being quite active on the pitching front.
I think they're going to be competing with the Tigers a little bit just because the Tigers have pitching and release young pitchers who are ahead of the Royals when it comes to just exactly how projectable they are, but still, a lot of bats to piece together and such. So maybe they'll be shopping in different departments to where they both can be active, but I could also see them going head to head as they try to augment, whatever is ailing them in both regards without like breaking the bank. Cause we know that I'm curious what the Tigers can spend. I know we have a vague idea or a general idea of how constrained the Royals are, but the Tigers, given that we've seen them throw, good money after bad. And we've seen, they still have Illich at the end of their names. Like, I wonder,
Yeah, but this isn't Dad.
yeah, it
Illich.
isn't. But just, should they get should they feel like, okay, we have young pitchers. How young pitchers are. You can't count on them being healthy 2 years from now. We need to capitalize. I think they could perhaps act if they wanted to.
Detroit.
Yes.
All right.
I think Kansas City's pitchers haven't quite aligned yet, where they really know exactly what the rotation is going to look like the way that the Tigers' rotation is shaping up.
Yeah. Well, I like the Tigers and Royals' chances better than the Twins in 2022, in which the Twins got some bad news that Kenta Maeda needs Tommy John surgery, and he's going to be out for the next 9 to 12 months. So realistically, he may not be able to rejoin the Minnesota Twins rotation until mid-June, maybe early July. And yeah, it makes sense that they traded away Jose Barrios, and I think the Twins should really strongly consider trading away Byron Buxton to do some type of mini rebuild or reload if you don't feel confident about challenging the White Sox in 2022. I also speak as a White Sox fan to get Byron Buxton out of the American League Central, because that would make life a lot easier for the White Sox. So please heed my advice, Minnesota Twins.
Or he can just continue to opt out of all games against the White Sox the way he did this year. He didn't opt out, but just like he was unavailable for one reason or another. Yeah. So if he just wants to take vacations on those weekends, that's also fine.
Yeah, it definitely helps for 2022. But we'll see on how this series goes between the Royals and the White Sox, and we will recap that series on Monday, and hopefully we get a chance to see Romy Gonzalez play, and we get to break that down as far as on how he performs. And on that Monday episode of the Sox Machine podcast, we'll also look ahead to the road series in Oakland, where the White Sox 2020 season ended in the American League wildcard round of the 2020 playoffs. But that will do it for this episode of Sox Machine Live. Thank you to everyone that watched the live stream on our YouTube page at youtube.com/SoxMachine, and also on SoxMachine.com and via Periscope on Twitter. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast and Sox Machine Live, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. The last time I checked, we were close to 500 subscribers, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much. For those that are listening to the podcast feed, and if you do watch videos on YouTube, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. When it comes to the postseason,
we just passed 500. 501.
We just did. Hey, all right, excellent. Thank you for the live update. Yeah, still subscribe. Next goal is 1,000. For our postseason plans, we'll provide more details, but we're going to be doing post-game shows in the upcoming postseason and utilize YouTube as well for our postseason content. So more reasons to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. We are at Sox Machine. You can follow me on Twitter at SoxMachine_Josh. And for those that don't get an opportunity to watch the live stream, you can subscribe to the Sox Machine podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy our work and you want more and want to help support us, go to patreon.com/SoxMachine, where we have several different tiers of support. Starting at $2, $3, $5, and $10 a month, where you get ad-free versions of the podcast, bonus content, exclusive content, and the first opportunity to purchase Sox Machine swag. And Jim's going to have an announcement on that end as far as new Sox Machine swag very soon.
Yes.
So as they say, stay tuned.
Yes, if you are a Patreon supporter, check your emails tonight. And if you are not yet a Patreon supporter, now you can hop on board to get said emails because there will be pretty significant announcements on multiple fronts for supporters. So yes, stay tuned. It'll be a matter of hours.
All right, excellent. So there you go. More teasing on what this is about. I promise you, I've seen it. It is awesome. You will like it. You will want it. And if you want that swag item, the best way to get it is on patreon.com/SoxMachine. Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I am Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.